taste of fish, I don't like the smell of fish, I don't like fish, period. But for some reason, I decided that I was gonna go try sushi. So as I sit down at this restaurant, I realize there's no fork or knife. All they give me is chopsticks. So as I'm trying to figure out how I'm gonna use these chopsticks to pick up this slimy, smelly, raw fish, I realize how important forks and knives really are. Now, all of you are gonna have to get up here and give your speech eventually, and I'm not gonna lie, it's a little nerve-wracking. But maybe if you get to know me, you'll be able to see a familiar face in the audience and be able to relax and give your speech with ease. And I feel like I'm pretty qualified to talk about myself because I know myself. I've been with myself for 19 years. And that is why I'm like eating utensils. I'm like a fork and I'm like a knife. I'm like a fork. I'm like a plastic fork and I'm like a metal fork. Now when I say I'm like a plastic fork, I don't mean that I'm disposable or breakable. No, I mean I'm flexible. I easily adapt to different situations and I'm usually pretty easy to get along with. I'm also on the go. Plastic forks, you can take them with you on the go. And I'm busy, whether I'm going to class or softball or work, I'm constantly on the go throughout the day. Now, a plastic fork, it has its qualities, but sometimes you need something with a little more oomph. And that's why I'm also like a metal fork. A metal fork is strong, it's sturdy. It pierces that Brussels sprout right through the middle. I tend to think of it kind of like a lion going after its prey. The lion is determined, it's strong-willed, it's going to get dinner tonight. In the same way, I have dreams and ambitions, and I'm not going to let obstacles get in my way. Also, you can usually find a metal fork at home, and I am such a homebody. You can usually find me there too. Now, I'm sure all of you have had after-dinner dish duty, and whenever I'm putting away the silverware, I kind of like to think of me putting the forks into their silverware bed and tucking them in for night. In the same way, I love my own bed, and I love home, and I could be found there probably if I'm not here. So I'm like a plastic fork and I'm like a metal fork. I'm like a fork. Now, if you walk into any random restaurant here in America, you're gonna find similarities. Forks are really common, but they're rarely found alone. Forks and knives tend to go hand in hand. Where there's a fork, there's often a knife. And that is why I'm also like a knife. I'm like a butter knife and I'm like a steak knife. Now when I say I'm like a butter knife, I don't mean that I'm one of those murder weapons with like blood dripping off of them and fingerprints. No, I'm talking about a butter knife. It's calm, it's not a threat, and it's definitely not dangerous. And I'm very calm. I really don't stress out a lot, and if there's like a hectic situation, I try to step back and take a calm approach instead of freaking out. And because a butter knife is calm, it's because of its dull blade. But the beauty of the dull blade is that it smooths everything over. Think of a piece of toast popping out of the toaster, and you use the butter knife to spread and smooth the butter onto all surfaces of the toast. In the same way, I'm not big about conflict and I don't like tension, so I like to smooth everything over and make sure that everyone's pretty happy. Now, a butter knife is great for, the little things, but sometimes you need something that's gonna get that job done. And that's why I'm like a steak knife. I tend to think of a steak knife kind of as a supporting actress. It's not always in the big picture, but it still plays an important role. In the same way, I don't always have to be center stage or number one, but when it is my turn to step up, I'm prepared and I'm able to do it. Have you ever had a big piece of juicy steak and all you have is a fork? It becomes a problem, right? In the same way, I'm a problem solver, just like a steak knife is a problem solver. Friends will come to me and vent, and I, for some reason, feel like I have to solve their problems and give them my advice, and they don't even care. They just want to get it off their chest. So that is why I'm like a butter knife, and I'm like a steak knife. I'm like a knife. So I've told you how I'm like a fork, and I'm like a knife. I'm like an eating utensil. So hopefully you've gotten to know me a little bit better, and you'll be able to see a familiar face and know that we're not all strangers in here. And next time you go to a sushi restaurant, bring your own fork and knife.